Trying to understand India's labor laws, it can feel like you're solving a puzzle, but with pieces from four different boxes. It's a real headache for everyone, employers and employees alike. Well, that might all be changing. The new Industrial Relations Code from 2020, it's meant to sweep away that whole mess and give us one single, streamlined framework. So today, we're going to decode the new draft rules that are supposed to make it all happen.
So what's the big idea here? Well, it all boils down to one word: consolidation. We're talking about taking four older, often overlapping sets of rules, things like the industrial disputes rules and the standing orders rules, and just combining them. The goal? To have one single playbook for managing workplace relationships, covering everything from day-to-day stuff to, major disputes. All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the new labor rulebook itself. Then we'll talk about the committees meant to keep things harmonious. After that, we'll dive into how workplace rules are actually defined. We'll also trace the path from a grievance to a resolution. And finally, we'll tackle the big one: the rules for strikes, layoffs, and what comes after. Okay, first up, committees for workplace harmony. Let's look at the proactive systems designed to keep the peace and stop disputes before they even start. So the rules set up two main committees, and it's really important to know the difference. On one hand, you have the Works Committee. Think of this as the place for big picture cooperation, stuff that affects everyone. But when one specific worker has a problem, an individual issue, that's when the Grievance Redressal Committee steps in. It's the official starting point for solving those personal disputes. And there are some really clear rules about how these committees have to be set up. It's all about fairness. For starters, you've got to have an equal number of people from the employer side and the workers' side. The Works Committee can have up to 20 members, while the Grievance Committee is smaller, maxing out at 10. And this is key: there must be adequate representation for women workers. Oh, and everyone serves a standard 2-year term. All right, so we've got the committees, but what rules are they actually working with? That brings us to a super important legal document: the standing orders. So what in the world are standing orders? The easiest way to think about them is like a constitution for your workplace. Seriously, this isn't some casual employee handbook. It's an official, legally certified rulebook that spells out the conditions of employment. Everything from work hours to how workers are classified. It's the foundational document for the entire place. Now, here's one of the biggest changes in the new system: how these standing orders actually get adopted. It's a much faster, digital-first process now. An employer can just adopt the government standard model rulebook, shoot an electronic notice to the certifying officer, and then, get this, if they don't hear anything back in 30 days, the orders are deemed certified. Boom, done. The whole idea is to slash the red tape and get things moving way faster. But what happens when talking just doesn't solve the problem? What's the formal path for a dispute? Let's look at the clear, time-bound ladder for taking a complaint all the way to a resolution. Okay, let's walk through this timeline. It all kicks off when a worker files a grievance with that committee we talked about. The clock starts ticking, and the committee has 30 days to come up with a decision. If the worker isn't happy with it, they have 60 days to appeal to a government conciliation officer. And if that still doesn't resolve it, the final stop is the industrial tribunal. But you have to apply within 90 days of the last report. See, it's a very clear step-by-step process with hard deadlines at every stage. And that brings us to our last, and you could argue, most critical section: the rules around major industrial actions. We're talking strikes, layoffs, and a brand new idea for handling the aftermath. When it comes to things like strikes and lockouts, the new rules are all about formal, transparent procedure. A legal strike can't just pop up out of nowhere. It needs an official notice on a specific government form signed by the union. And the same goes for an employer who wants to initiate a lockout. Every major action has to be officially documented and reported straight to the government. So what about the most drastic move an employer can make? I mean, shutting down the entire operation? Well, the rules set a really high bar here. An employer can't just decide to lock the doors overnight. Nope. They have to formally apply to the government for permission. And that application, it has to be submitted at least this many days in advance, 90. That's a full 3 months' notice.
It's clearly designed to prevent sudden closures and give everyone time to react. Okay, so what about layoffs or retrenchment? What happens to an individual worker who loses their job? The new code introduces this really fascinating financial obligation for the employer. For every single worker they lay off, the employer has to set aside a sum equal to this many days of their last drawn salary, 15. But here's the twist. That money doesn't just go into the worker's pocket as severance. It goes somewhere completely new.
And this is the really crucial part. That payment, the one equal to 15 days' wages, has to be paid by the employer within 10 days of the layoff. And it goes into a brand new central fund called the Worker Reskilling Fund. This is a huge shift in thinking. It's not just about a one-time payout, it's about investing in a safety net that helps displaced workers get back on their feet.
And the rules are very specific about what happens to that money. The government takes the funds and has to transfer it directly into the worker's bank account, and they have 45 days to do it. As the rule itself says, the worker is supposed to utilize such amount for his reskilling. So the goal here isn't just a check. It's to give that worker the actual resources they need to learn new skills and find their next job. So that leaves us with the big question, right? Is this new unified rulebook really going to lead to a simpler, more efficient system? Or will putting it all into practice just create a whole new set of complexities? I mean, the framework is set, but how it's actually going to impact millions of employers and workers out there in the real world, well, that's a story that's really just beginning to unfold.